You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, let's now turn to the race for president on the Democratic side. Voters in South Carolina going to the polls. Mike Bloomberg is not on the ballot in South Carolina. He is on the ballot on Super Tuesday, which is taking place again next Tuesday. For a group of African Americans, Latinos in New York City, they say they do not support the candidacy of Mike Bloomberg and calling on Americans not to do so as well. And so they sent a letter out to a variety of media outlets calling for folks not to support him. And joining us right now is Jumaane Williams. He is the public advocate for the city of New York. Jumaane, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. The letter that was released, y'all state in here, quote, in recent days, Michael Bloomberg has attempted to rewrite his legacy, but we haven't forgotten the extent of harm, humiliation, and terror that the Bloomberg administration's daily racial profiling and police violence caused in Black, Latinx, and other communities of color cannot be overstated. The debate took place on Tuesday. He said he apologized for that debate, but that's not good enough for you and others, correct?
Absolutely not. Thanks for having me. I'm
sorry on the debate on Tuesday. He apologized for stop and frisk at the debate, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. We had a press conference again this morning, actually. Some of the same signers and other people, including Kevin Richardson, who spoke on behalf of the Exonerated Five, formerly the Central Park Five, just reminding folks that Bloomberg is not the person he is paying those ads to make him out to be. And I would say, Roland, I wish it was only stop and frisk. If that was the only policy we had to deal with. And remind folks that he was defending that practice up until a week before he announced for the presidency. That's 2019 that he was defending this practice, a practice that stopped more young Black men that actually live in the city of New York. But we have to remind people his housing policies and homelessness policies were atrocious. Homelessness rose about 71% in his tenure, in a direct result to his terrible policies. Education, we became one of the most segregated educational systems in the entire country under Mike Bloomberg. If you look at how he left every municipal employee, and he lied about his relationship with the teachers union and the debate, he left everybody without a contract. That was his way of trying to balance the budget. If we talk about how he dealt with protesters, from the protests of the Republican National Convention, where I remind people he endorsed George W. Bush, to how he violently removed the protesters in Occupy Wall Street. I just settled a lawsuit because his administration did not allow any elected officials or any media to oversee that. In fact, my colleague, Adonis Rodriguez, was bleeding from the forehead trying to get to observe what was going on, and he was thrown to the ground. That's the Michael Bloomberg that we all know. And it is embarrassing and it's shameful to see so many people flock to him across this country. And so we want to make sure we get the real information out. I'm most distraught and disappointed by Black leaders in New York City, some of whom I look up to, who know who he was, who was here, but are proving one of two things or both. One is people can be bought if the price is right. And the last part is that unfortunately many people who came in to change who was representing communities simply want to replicate a system that doesn't work for most communities. And so anybody that's going to shake up that apple cart, they want someone like a Mike Bloomberg who's going to continue a system that harms all of us.
And when you talk about that particular issue, I mean, obviously, all the attention in these last two debates that he participated in were solely about stop and frisk, but you were expanding on these issues. There's others who also said that he didn't do enough to desegregate New York City schools.
Absolutely. If you look at especially the gifted and talented programs that we had, that's now 80-90% white New Yorkers. That happened under Mike Bloomberg. If you look at the schools that he closed, and his own policy was simply to open up charter schools, as many as humanly possible. And what that basically said is, if you can get into a charter school, great for you. If you are in the other public school system, we're not going to fund you the way we should fund you. And that has had a huge effect on education in the same communities. And it's not, I have to repeat, it is not just about policing. Again, his housing policies have caused a reverse migration in a way we haven't seen in a very long time for Black and brown people, but especially Black people who are moving back down south, because what the dollar can pay for here in New York City has never been more expensive. Homelessness literally rose 71% because he cut housing programs. That was Mike Bloomberg. We know who he is, and we're really hoping that people across the nation won't be fooled by those ads, because I'll admit that they're pretty good ads. They're just full of misrepresentation, and they're full of lies. Again, he was not a friend of unions. He fought us on everything. He fought minimum wage. The reason Kevin Richardson was there is because Mike Bloomberg spent $6 million fighting the exonerated five, saying that the city did not have to settle for them, settle their case, and saying that at the time, the DAs had enough information to put those 5 young men in jail. He was asked about this a few months ago. Do you have an opinion of the Central Park Five, now the exonerated five? He says, no, I don't, and repeated some of the things he said before. This is who this man is. And this thing about only Bloomberg can beat Donald Trump, I've heard that before 4 years ago, and now I have 4 years of Donald Trump. And I will say also, I want to make it clear that he is not the person to beat Donald Trump. He may actually suppress the vote. Yes, people are better than Donald Trump by degree. George W. Bush is better than Donald Trump by degree, but we should not support him, and we should not support Michael Bloomberg.
All right, Jumaane Williams, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, I want to go to you first, Reese. Again, Mike Bloomberg has spent more than $500 million. He's being attacked on stage by other Democratic presidential candidates, saying he is trying to buy the race. Now you have folks who know him best in New York City who are saying that he should not be getting support. Nate Silver of 538 saying that Bloomberg is in trouble, that his numbers are dropping across the country as a result of these two debate performances. Just your thoughts on this call out of New York, and what do you make of, again, the withering attack that Bloomberg has been under from various quarters?
Well, I mean, first of all, his debate performance it sucked really bad. His first debate was awful. His answer on stop and frisk on both debates were inadequate and unconvincing. I think that the withering attacks, though, on his record are convenient timing, because he has been in this race since November. And I'm not defending Mike Bloomberg, be clear. But he has been in the race since November, and a lot of people who are, howling about stop and frisk now, which is a legitimate issue, were kind of going the whole anti-billionaire route first, and then once he started to grow into the polls, then they kind of switched course. I'm all for accountability for Michael Bloomberg, but I do think that we're having a very one-sided accountability conversation, because we are not having an honest conversation about mass incarceration that was caused by the crime bill. You want to talk about segregation in New York? We did not have an honest conversation about segregation measures that were taken when Joe Biden was a senator. And so I would like to see this accountability for everybody. I don't think that it's fair to speak for Black people and only hold one particular candidate accountable. Let's hold them all accountable. In 10 debates, and I looked at the transcripts to confirm this, Bernie Sanders was not asked even one time about his support for the crime bill. And he's gotten away with this line about, oh, well, he only voted for it because of Violence Against Women Act. Well, he's on tape at a press conference talking about how we need more prisons and how we need some harsher penalties for some things. So I would like to see accountability and an honest conversation for Bernie Sanders. The same with Joe Biden. I don't think that Joe Biden has had to account for his crime bill, championing of it. And when he does talk about it, he says that the crime bill was great and all these Black people supported it, and it did not lead to mass incarceration. So I am 100% for accountability. I'm 100% for talking about the records of all of these candidates, but let's talk about all of them and then let people make their decision. And I think it's a little reductive to just say that, oh, well, people are fooled or people are being foolish for supporting Michael Bloomberg. I think people are weighing the records, people are weighing the proposals, and Michael Bloomberg does have some compelling things that he's speaking to, and he's going to Black people specifically via the radio market and the Black TV market. And so I don't think that message of everybody who's supporting Michael Bloomberg is stupid is going to resonate with people. And you have to make an affirmative case for each of these people. That have to make affirmative cases for their candidates. And I think that a lot of people have a kind of cynical view that, well, they all have baggage, they all have issues, and it's who's speaking to what I think we need going forward.
Look, I mean, Erica, she's right. I said I was very frustrated in Tuesday night's debate to see the CBS moderators ask Michael Bloomberg about stop and frisk. Then when he said that he cut it by 95%, not correct him, because considering the federal judge has done interviews saying that that he fought it, they fought to get her removed, and it was her calling it unconstitutional is what led to that. It was also bothersome to me to watch the moderators then toss to Amy Klobuchar and ask her about stop and frisk, but nothing about her own record as DA and not prosecuting any cases involving police shooting or Black men who said they were wrongfully incarcerated. Yeah. And then not ask Joe Biden about the 1994 crime bill, not ask Bernie Sanders about his vote for the 1994 crime bill, not ask Pete Buttigieg the problems in his police department. And so, look, I absolutely understand Jumaane and others, their point regarding what took place in New York City. But yes, if we're going to have a discussion about past records and criminal justice reform, Mike Bloomberg cannot be the only person who's being questioned.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone on that stage really has a profile to show to America. And I think the other thing, too, is that if we're going to say to not support one candidate, well, then who are you supporting? Where are you pointing people? Because what we don't want to see is a revamp of what happened in 2016, because I don't necessarily like the top of the ticket. There's this early voter apathy that's happening. Now we have a full-throated disinformation campaign led by the White House occupant and all of his agents. And so when we have that amount of confusion and not a lot of clarity, for people that are very much so sold on getting someone out of the race, my question is always, well, who are you pointing people towards? So I think that, as you both have said, that honestly, what needs to happen is for everyone's profile to be dug into. And this is something that I really do have a serious issue with the Democratic Party on, going back to 2017. Listen, for those folks who were going to run again, and just being honest, it was Bernie Sanders. For those same people that had full intentions on continuing to run again, this flesh out of records should have been happening even then, because the place that we're at now, on the media side, there seems to be a tiptoeing and then another selection of winners. And we saw how that happened, what that did for us in 2016. And so at this point, I think what needs to happen is that everybody's records need to be laid to bear. And that if, based on those records, when you're looking at people who have served in politics 30, 40 years, and even not as long as that, but actually having an idea of the game, to be at a place where that level of honesty and then really engaging people around the vote will help kind of the lack of inspiration that all of us are feeling right now. Because to be quite honest with you, for Black folks and Latino and people of color, there is no plan B. So I don't fault anyone, particularly a voter, who's saying at this moment, listen, I was just listening to some coverage around the White House occupant, and the things that he's saying specific to coronavirus are very much so around the market. It's not about public health service. It's not about getting information out to the public. And so if people are seeing pound for pound, dollar for dollar, that there is someone that could get in the ring and actually match him, I totally understand that. But to also back it up, I think that, informing people across the board definitely goes a long way with empowering that voter as well.
All right, then. So we certainly be watching this. We'll see what happens when it comes to Super Tuesday.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, are you looking to enhance your leadership or that of your team in 2020? Well, you should join Dr. Jackie Martin for her newest online course and mastermind group, How Successful People Think. She'll be your guide as you learn timeless leadership principles to apply to daily living. The offer expires on February 28th. That's this week. So register for or start the online course today. Go to www.livetolead.com/Leesburg. Live, L-I-V-E, the number 2, LEAD.com/Leesburg. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.